Hello everyone, this is Oofta, Upkeep Draw. I've had a weird few weeks and struggled with putting out a skit video, but I don't want to take too much of a break, so instead of a simple skit, we're going to tackle a bigger issue, keeping track of the stack. This is a question that I fielded on the unofficial Magic Judge chat last week. I'm going to recreate the situation here. The left side is permanents on the battlefield, or I suppose also the Undercity. The right side will be zooming in on cards so you can read them better, and the middle is going to be the stack. So on the battlefield, we have three creatures. First is Radiant Solar, which triggers when a creature enters the battlefield to have you venture into the dungeon. Second, Hama Pashar has a replacement effect that causes dungeon rooms to trigger a second time. Quite useful with Radiant Solar. And third, we have Sephiroth, with two triggers, but only one that's relevant to this situation. When you complete a dungeon, you return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. This is looking like a pretty synergistic board state, and of course, this player has been plowing through dungeons. In fact, they gained the initiative a while back, and are one room away from completing the Undercity, which gets them a creature for free from their library. However, this has created a problem. See, they want to keep going through the Undercity when they're done, and they have a seasoned Dungeoneer in their hand, which takes the initiative when it enters the battlefield. Their question is, if they have all this and play the Dungeoneer, do they go into the Undercity? Pause the video here and try and work out what happens on your own if you want. I recommend using something to physically recreate the stack. There's a reason I'm using Moxfield for this. Alright, here we go. Dungeoneer enters the battlefield. Dungeoneer and Solar both trigger. So I'm going to make little stack representations here in the middle. The active player chooses the order of the triggers. If they resolve the Dungeoneer first, they definitely won't take the initiative since it's the only trigger among all of these that involves starting up the Undercity again. So we're going to put that first, and then the Solar. So the Solar will resolve first. Solar triggers and resolves. We move to the last room of the Undercity. And because of Hama Pashar, we get two triggers for that. So now we have two Undercity triggers. These triggers go on top of the Dungeoneer, which still hasn't resolved. Let's finish the first Undercity. We're going to go in the top 10 cards of our library and find this Savannah Lions, which enters the battlefield. Uh-oh. Solar triggers again. Solar's back on top. Now, if you're wondering, hey, you just finished the last room of a dungeon, shouldn't you have completed a dungeon? There's two ways for a dungeon to complete. Either all of the room triggers are off of the stack, which is not the case, there's still one on the stack, or you try and enter a dungeon while you're in the last room of a dungeon, which you're about to do because this Radiant Solar is about to trigger. So this trigger finishes, and we need to enter a dungeon. The problem is, we can't enter the Undercity. We have to venture into a dungeon. So we're going to be done with this Undercity here and go into, say, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. We've got two Dungeon of the Mad Mage Room 1 triggers to put onto the stack. But since I just entered a new dungeon, that finished the Undercity. So now I've got a Sephiroth to put onto the stack. Order of these isn't super important. I'm going to do the Sephiroth last just for ease of stuff. So now the stack looks like this. The Dungeoneer is still there. The final room of the Undercity is still there. And I've got the Sephiroth and two dungeon triggers. We'll do the dungeons. We'll gain one life. And then we'll gain one life. Now Sephiroth triggers. We've completed a dungeon. where I return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Hey, look, we found another Savannah Lions. You know what that means? Radiant Solar triggered again. We're going to finish that trigger. Put 2 more Dungeon of the Mad Mage triggers on this deck. We're going to scry 1, and we're going to scry 1. Boy, it's been a while since we've seen this Undercity trigger, but it's back. We're going to look at the top 10 cards of our library again. We're going to not find anything this time, just for finishing it off. And finally, from the very beginning, we've got the Seasoned Dungeoneer, who wants to take the initiative, but we're still in a non-Undercity dungeon, and so we cannot take the initiative off of this. We have to go ahead and go into the Dungeon of the Mad Mage and make 2 creatures not be able to attack, or make 2 treasures. Obviously, this is a very specific situation. It's an example of keeping track of the stack and adding triggers on top of triggers. Your games will be different than this. There is going to be different situations. But if you're careful and keep track of the stack, you shouldn't have trouble maintaining your board state. Let me know if you like this form of video where it's got more complex interactions. I'm totally fine making videos like this from time to time. I do still enjoy making the skits, but just something wasn't working this week. Next week, hopefully, I'll have a skit out again. Thanks. Bye.